This was we view this as a very successful session. First, you remember, first day of session, we outlined three goals. One, we wanted to pass a balanced budget that protected higher education and healthcare and did that without raising taxes. I am pleased that that is what we've accomplished. That is the sum total. If you look at the bills, the multiple bills the legislature approved, including up until the last minutes today, we will be able to sign a balanced budget that does indeed invest in higher education, healthcare, and does not include a net increase in taxes. Secondly, we said we wanted to start and move our state out of Common Core. I am pleased that we'll be able to sign bills out of this session that restores local control over K through 12 education, especially over curriculum, and puts us on a path to get out of Common Core. Obviously, the next step will be in the elections to elect leaders that are committed to getting Louisiana out of Common Core. But I think it is good these bills put us on a path to get out of Common Core. Third, we outlined the issue of religious liberty. I'm pleased that we were able to sign an executive order further protecting religious liberty rights here in Louisiana when the legislature decided not to debate the legislation on its merits. I do think that'll be a topic for the next legislature, and I hope they will come back to this bill and actually consider the bill on its merits. Obviously, there were several other bills we are going to be pleased to sign. We had several other bills in our governor's package dealing with everything from victims of sexual assault cases and making sure they don't have to pay for their exams, their medical exams, to other bills that we think are important that move through the process. But these were our three most important goals. One, investing in protecting higher ed and health care without raising taxes. Secondly, getting us on a pathway to get out of Common Core, local control of education. And third, further preserving religious liberty in Louisiana. And I'm pleased that we accomplished all three of these goals. From our perspective, it was a good session for the people of Louisiana. I'm especially pleased the progress we'll be able to make in higher education and health care. I'm happy to take your questions.
Governor Jindal, are you saying the budget's balanced because of the state tax credit?
I'm saying as a package, and again, if you look at HB1 is the budget will be balanced. And look, we're going to go through the budget. We'll be considering line item vetoes and other of the details in the budget. The budget will be balanced when you look at it as a package. When you look at the overall package the legislature has sent to us, we've said all along, if you remember during these weekly meetings, we've said if you look at the overall package of multiple bills, we are working towards a balanced budget that doesn't raise taxes. So yes, as a package of bills, this will be a balanced budget that doesn't raise taxes.
Can you explain to me how the save tax credit saves a business or a person in Louisiana money?
Sure. So Chris Broadwater authored a bill, and let's say that bill were to become law without the SAVE credit, the SAVE legislation. That bill authorizes the management boards to increase fees at the universities up to the national average. If the SAVE credit weren't there, that would be an additional cost to the families of those students. So if the boards approve that fee increase without the SAVE credit, that would be an increase in cost to those families. The SAVE credit will help to make higher education, keep higher education more affordable for families in Louisiana. There were a dozen bills considered this session to give increases in tuition or fees. At least one of those that passed, and there are others, at least one of those that passed, the Broadwater bill, gives the management boards over the next couple of years the ability to raise those fees without another vote of the legislature. That's one example of how the SAVE legislation helps families, helps to keep higher education more affordable, and also make sure that we doesn't have a net increase in taxes.
Do you have a problem with the fact that even the people who were advocating for your bill on the floor, including Chris Broadwater, said they were embarrassed by it, they called it a sham, they called it a gimmick, they all said they thought it was a fake deal, they just wanted it so you wouldn't veto it?
I heard several members tell me, let me tell you what I heard members tell me. I heard members tell me they were glad this was dedicating money to higher education, and they said that that was the first time that we've actually been able to do that in this state in a long time. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, over $300 million, $350 million a year that will be dedicated to higher education. They were glad this helped protect their community and technical colleges. I was glad that it was a bipartisan vote. I think it was 59 votes in favor of this credit. I think it was 30 votes in the Senate. I was glad to see strong bipartisan support. So when members have talked to me about this, they were glad to see the dedication to higher education. Some of them mentioned they're glad they'll be able to go home and say they didn't vote for a net increase in taxes, but I know a lot of them were especially pleased that not only are they keeping it more affordable for students in Louisiana, they're actually dedicating these dollars. Another benefit of SAVE, let's say they hadn't done the SAVE, and let's say that they had simply passed these bills on revenues. There's nothing guaranteeing that money would continue to go to higher education. This is a dedication to higher education. I think that's a good thing for our universities and schools.
But you also saw that, you clearly followed the debate and you had to know what they were calling it on the floor. So they clearly weren't saying nice things about it on the floor. They were saying rather negative things about it.
Look, well, I can tell you what members have told me, and I can also tell you that I've actually talked to members about this earlier today. I don't take anything they say on the floor personally. You've got to have a thick skin if you're in this business. They say all kinds of things about me every day. What's more important to me, it's not about me, it's about the people of Louisiana. And I don't care what they say about me as long as they pass good bills. And that's what they've done. They've passed good bills that balance the budget, protect higher education, protect healthcare without raising taxes. I'd much rather that than they go down on the mic, say great things about me, and pass bad bills. So I don't mind at all. That's part of the job. So I'm more than happy for them to say whatever they want to say about me as long as they end up voting for good bills. I was proud that it was a good, strong 59-vote majority and a 30-vote majority in the Senate.
Governor, because this seems to be a bookkeeping scheme, do you have any concerns that it may impact the state's bond rating, that it may impact the SACS accreditation for the schools, because it does seem a little hanky?
No.
That's all you're gonna say.
You only asked me if I have a concern. No, I don't. Look, again, to the previous question, this, without the SAVE credit, with the Broadwater and some of these other legislation, these other bills out there, families could be facing the prospect of higher fees, higher costs to attend public universities, colleges, community and technical colleges in our state. SAVE helps to protect them for that. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good to make higher education more affordable. I think it's just good to have a dedicated funding stream to higher education. I think it's good that we don't have a net increase in taxes. I think all of those are very positive attributes of this legislation. Now, usually I get criticized for long answers. I don't usually get criticized for short answers, so.
You're not gonna veto any of those tax bills that were part of the package now? I mean, are they assured that all of that will stand?
Yeah, in terms of the package, there were discussions late last night in terms of what was in the budget. We're certainly, it's not our intent to veto anything that would impact the funding for higher education and healthcare that was discussed last night. Now, look, I do reserve the right, we're going to look through every bill, look for any unintended consequences, but we were a part of discussion. So in terms of and there are certain revenue raisers that we're going to look at carefully that we may have concerns about, but for broadly speaking, in terms of the overall discussions we had last night in terms of making sure that we had a balanced budget, no, we're not intending to veto individual components. It's not our intent to break the deal that was made.
What about
But again, we do want to look carefully, through every bill for any unintended consequences.
what about the cigarette tax? Are you fine with that?
As part of the overall package, yes. That is part of the balanced budget that doesn't raise taxes, that protects higher education and healthcare. And that was part of the discussions late last night between the House and the Senate. And again, we were involved, and we will certainly honor the agreement to come up with a balanced budget that protects education and healthcare.
Within the cigarette tax
This is
tax?
completely off the subject, but we're from Shreveport, so I gotta ask you about the flooding situation up there and the state's stance on it at this point.
Absolutely. Look, first of all, obviously our thoughts and prayers are with the folks in Northwest Louisiana. I know that there were several records broken over the weekend and earlier this week with the water. It is good news that the crest has gotten here. Obviously, it's going to take some time for that water to return to normal levels. Where we are today, so I came up last Friday to witness the preparation efforts personally. We dispatched National Guard. We mobilized some National Guard assets, along with other assets to help protect especially the water infrastructure and to help do everything they could to help locals prepare for the water. Where we are today, we've got public damage assessment teams on the ground in the area from GOSEP, from the governor's office. They are collecting the data, they're documenting the damage. They will then turn that into FEMA with the intent of trying to get a federal declaration, or presidential declaration that would free up additional assistance for property owners, residents, for local governments as well in Northwest Louisiana. I want to commend the folks up there. I know they've been resilient. I know this has been a tough several days. I know that the National Weather Service forecasts continue to get worse and worse over time. But again, they pulled together, and I want to commend them for that. We're at that phase in the response efforts. Now we've got National Guard still mobilized. They're still there to help. But now we've got the damage assessment teams. They're on the ground collecting pictures. We'd encourage folks that have had damage, we said this last week as well, anybody that's had any damage, they should document it and get it to their local parish office. They don't have to, they shouldn't stop from cleaning up the damage. They should clean up the debris. They should repair that damage. They don't need to stop, but if they can document it, will help the locals get that declaration. It could free up some assistance.
I want to follow up, any idea on a timeline for federal assistance?
Well, the first step, we as a state have to be able to document cumulative damages of over $6.3 million. And then at the parish level, we have to document damage, and each parish has got a different threshold. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars level. It's not $1 million level. But we've got to meet both of those thresholds. So when we do that, it's not binding on FEMA. It's not binding on the president. They've got then the discretion to make that declaration. We'll get that data to them. The good news is, even last week, we had already reached out to FEMA, we had already reached out to the federal government, so that they're already ready to receive this data, do their own damage assessment, and try to respond as quickly as possible. So in the meantime, what folks can do at home, they don't need to delay repairing their damage, but if they could document it, just take some pictures, document any receipts, get that to their local parish emergency response office. That could help in the federal declaration. And again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the people up in northwest Louisiana. Obviously, this water is coming down to central Louisiana. We're working with folks in central Louisiana as well, and the National Guard's working with them as well as state police and wildlife and fisheries to make sure that they're prepared, protecting homeowners, but also water infrastructure as well.
Guys, we've got time for just a few more.
Governor, can I ask one more Save Fund question? Now, I understand it does several things, and so leaving aside the virtues of the obligating money to higher education and the virtues of perhaps avoiding potential fees and, the higher education money. Given that with the smoking tax, cigarette tax, a lot of people's tax burdens are unquestionably going to go up to some degree. Under Save Plan, no one's current tax burden is going to change at all. So how is that an offset?
Well, again, typically, I know he's talked, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to talk to you about how we have always said the tax code shouldn't be etched in stone. We are fine with tax credits offsetting tax cuts, offsetting tax increases, and that's what SAVE does. And I'd be more than happy, Tim's here, I know he's talked to you, he'd be more than happy to walk with you through the mechanics to show how it actually does reduce somebody's tax liability. Be happy to show you how that credit is against their average state tax liability. So he'd be more than happy to walk you through that. It is a tax credit, and it is a credit against their tax liability. Look, at the end of the day, I'm proud of this legislation. It dedicates money to higher ed. It makes sure that higher education continues to be affordable in Louisiana. It helps to protect the families against the potential of, not just the potential, but the legislation that's passed in terms of rising fees and potential increases in tuition. And third, it makes sure that we've got a balanced budget without raising taxes on net. And again, Tim would be more than happy to walk you through those details.
Governor, this is your last session after 8 years. What do you wish you had been able to accomplish?
That's a great question. I tell my staff all the time that we will run out of time before we run out of things to do, and we shouldn't bat 1,000 at every session. That means we didn't try to do enough things. So obviously, a couple of years ago, we tried to get rid of the income tax. I still think it was the right thing to do, and I think that there is still more work to be done there. I'm proud of the fact of the work we have done in education reform, K through 12 education reform, with school choice. I think you're going to see an increase in capacity, a significant increase in capacity over the next couple of years. I think you're going to see in this year and next year a significant increase in the STO part of the school choice legislation that we did. You've got a lot of private groups that are interested in helping students afford and have the opportunity to go to schools their parents choose for them. I'd like to see that capacity continue to increase. This is a victim of our own success. There's much more demand than there is supply. So I'd like to see there be more capacity to meet the demand from parents who want other options for their children's education. I'm sure there are many other things as well. The one that stands out the first and foremost is, again, our effort to get rid of the income tax. I think it was the right thing to do to try to improve the economic competitiveness of our state. I think the fact that we insisted that it had to be revenue neutral, that it couldn't be a net tax increase, made it a lot harder to accomplish downstairs. We had heard from a lot of legislators when we tried that if we were willing to allow a tax increase to go through, they were more willing to look at it, and we didn't want to do that. And I still think that was the right position to take. I still think, even though we've still got some of the lowest, again, Louisiana ranks amongst the lowest tax burden in the country when you look at state and local combined taxes, I still think we have a lot more work to do as a state to make our tax code more user-friendly. We've got high nominal rates with large rebates and credits. We took a step, I think, in the right direction this year in reducing some of the refundable credits and spending. I think there's more work to be done there as well. I think that needs to be viewed as spending in the same way we view as spending on health care and education. And I think that there's more work that could be done there. I'm glad we took a first step on that. It was 25% in the bill that was passed, but I think more work could be done there as well. If you give me time, I'm sure we'll think of several other things, but those are some of the things. But again, I tell my staff at the end of every session, if we got everything we asked for, we didn't ask for enough. So I'm glad that we tried those things, and there's certainly, I'm sure, there'll be more than enough work. If you want a list of other things that I'm sure you've got at least 4 guys running for governor, be more than happy to tell you all the other stuff that remains to be done, and that's their job, and good for them. I hope they enjoy their time doing it over the next several months.
We've got time for one more question.
Governor, do you feel like you had to give up anything in exchange for the SAVE bill, that you had to work closely with lawmakers and maybe address some of the needs and wants that they had maybe for their districts?
I don't think we had to give up anything in particular for the SAVE bill. I do think, like in any session, this is an iterative process. And we said that all along, that our bills weren't etched in stone. This was a process all along. We proposed in the executive budget different way to balance the budget that involved, in the supplement, and when I say in the executive budget, obviously because of some of the bills that were passed last year, Christie had to go to the table and talk about some of the things outside of the budget. So for example, we had proposed going after more when it came to some of the refundable credits. We had proposed getting more savings out of that, and the legislature decided to do a different path, and that's fine. We had said all along that our ideas weren't the only ideas. We put those on the table as a way to get to where we wanted to get today. All along, we said we wanted a balanced budget that protected higher ed and healthcare without raising taxes. So all throughout this process, we talked and listened to legislators. And we proposed one way. They used some of those ideas. They had some of their own ideas. The good news is, at the end of the day, we outlined our priorities to them in private. We outlined our priorities to them in public. I said it in my speech at the first day of session. And I'm pleased on the last day of session, we were able to hit those priorities. So absolutely, there was an iterative process where they had their own ideas about how they wanted to spend the money and how they wanted to balance the budget. And look, the process isn't over. Obviously, we're not going to go through these bills, and not just HB1, but also these other bills, to see which ones we'll sign and make sure that there are some things in there with some unintended consequences.
Governor, have you been following the Albert Woodfox case, and do you think he should be released from prison?
Look, I'll defer to the Attorney General's office. I know they're in court. I know they're appealing. They've asked us to send press inquiries to them, and so we'll continue to do that.
Governor, the four men who want to replace you have all said that they are going to call a special session when they take office to clean up, in their view, the budget mess that you and this legislature are leaving behind. What do you say to that?
Look, I think you've got a balanced budget that significantly, and Christie can share with you the numbers, significantly reduces expenditures, hundreds of millions of dollars, has a net increase when you look at it in terms of the reliance on recurring instead of one-time revenues. This is a solid budget. We're going to be leaving the next governor, since we've been here, 8 credit upgrades. Candidates say a lot of things, and I wish them well, and I wish them each good luck as they make their case directly to the voters.